Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this month's Teaching Kitchen. I'm April Rozzo. If you're new, I'm one of the registered dietitians with Florida Cancer Specialists and Research Institute. And on the call with us also today is Angie Mathewson, also one of our registered dietitians. She will be my moderator today because I cannot see the chat box or anything while I'm over here cooking. So Angie will be keeping an eye on that. She'll be chatting with me as we go through and talking about the different ingredients. So if you have any questions as we are moving along, please feel free to put them in the chat box and Angie will pick them up and kind of throw them out there for us to chat about. So today we are making a fresh spring orzo salad. And the beauty of this salad is that it's not just for spring. It's so, the ingredients are so interchangeable that you can use this base recipe any time of the year, whatever veggies happen to be in season. I thought that was going to happen to the camera with the steam. So this is, if you can see this, I have a tricolor orzo. And if you're not familiar with orzo, it's pasta that looks like rice.
Yeah, in particular, I feel like it looks like the arborio rice that you like make polenta with, or not polenta, risotto.
Risotto, yes. So it cooks like pasta. It only takes, so rice, you know, when you put rice in the pot, it's going to take 45 minutes to cook. Orzo cooks like pasta. It is pasta. So once I put it in the boiling water, 8 to 10 minutes. And I get to talking with you guys and totally lose track of time. So I'm going to go ahead and set a timer for 8 minutes. In this other pot, because we're going to treat you guys to some make ahead meal planning, freezer prep tips today. So in this other pot, we've got some farro cooking. And I've used it a couple of times on the Teaching Kitchen. If you're not familiar with farro, this is one of the brands. It's a grain, it's a whole grain. So this is more like rice. It's a little bit thicker than rice. It's a little bit chewier, but you cook it the same way. So you get a pot of water boiling, then you add in your farro, and it's going to take about 25 to 30 minutes to cook, which is why I started it ahead of time. It was already boiling by the time we started this today. But I'm going to show you what to do with it so that you can toss it in the freezer and have your prep, your grain already ready to go so that you don't add a 30-minute cook time onto your weeknight evening meals. So both of those on the stove cooking, okay? And while we're doing that, I'm gonna use this nice big bowl here for my ingredients as we're going along. This is gonna be my salad bowl here. So we're gonna start assembling everything else that goes into the salad. The only thing we have to cook today is the orzo. Everything else goes in fresh. Now the recipe calls for a tablespoon of dried oregano. And I'm going to do this a little bit out of order because I want to chop up. I have some fresh oregano that I want to chop up before my board gets all wet from the tomatoes and stuff. A tablespoon of dried oregano, totally fine. I happen to have a beautiful oregano plant. So I thought, let's make use of that. So just remember, if you have fresh oregano, you're going to double it. Okay, so it's a 2-to-1 or even a 3-to-1 ratio fresh to dried because the dried herbs are more concentrated, so you don't use as much. Okay, so that's why I've got a couple tablespoons of the fresh oregano. And the leaves are pretty big. I don't want just a mouthful of oregano. I want it nice and dispersed in my salad. So I'm just going to give it a really rough chop. You do not have to be super detailed or specific. We just want to kind of break up these leaves a little bit.
And that
Okay.
ratio you just described, 2 to 3.
Yes.
So
2
if
to
the recipe,
1 or 3
a
to
lot of
1.
times I'll have
Yes.
recipes call for the fresh
Yep.
and I have the dried, so I cut it in half to a
Cut it
third.
in half. Exactly. Yeah.
So flip your fraction.
Yes. So super easy, super quick. Okay. I'm just going to get all that in my little salad mixing bowl. And again, I'm just going out of order because my chopping block here is about to get really wet from the tomatoes, and then the oregano would just get messy.
Yeah.
That's the only reason we're going out of order. So the bulk of my recipe are tomatoes and spinach. You could use asparagus. You could use cauliflower, broccoli, carrots, whatever you like.
Cucumbers.
Yes, yes. Whatever is on sale, whatever seasonal, whatever looks good, you can absolutely trade these out. When I was testing the recipe, just to make sure my ratios were correct, I had sweet potatoes. I didn't have any veggies somehow in my house. All I had were sweet potatoes. So I put sweet potatoes and feta and everything else, and it was delicious. I think I might have had tomatoes. So I just did sweet potatoes and tomatoes, which sounds like a really odd combination, but it was delicious. And again, we want these, I mean, you want like chunks of tomato. You don't need to dice them up really tiny. You want them bite-sized, right? But you want to be able to taste your tomatoes. So we just want to give those a rough chop and get them in. And actually, before I go any further with the tomatoes, I'm going to do the same thing with the spinach that I just did with the oregano, and I'm going to give that a rough chop before the board gets really wet.
Yeah,
Okay?
tomatoes are so juicy, and you know, I'm all about the shortcuts.
Yes.
And also half of my family, no, 3/4 of my family really doesn't like, so everyone but me don't like tomatoes. So when the recipes call for tomatoes, I will get the cherry or grape tomatoes, and I
Yes.
just have them. First of
Mhm.
all, I'm like halvesies on tomatoes because like all that juice bothers me. But the
Yes.
cherry tomatoes, you just cut them in half and they're
Mhm.
done. And then the people who don't want them pick them out.
Pick them out, and they're
Yeah.
not super juicy. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times for this particular salad, if I'm doing a sandwich, I want the whole slices of juicy tomatoes. But a lot of times when I'm doing a salad like this, I don't want all that extra juice. I don't want the
Mm-hmm.
salad to be wet necessarily. So as we're chopping, as we're going along, yes, you might see me like picking some of the seeds out, because
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want all that in my salad.
Well, and this one with the greens, that orzo will keep soaking up any tomato
It absolutely
goo.
will. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of flexibility with this recipe. I was going to say something else and totally lost it. It's all right. We're going to chop these up. Oh, I know what I was going to say. This also, the beauty of this salad is it is definitely not like baking, where you do not have to be super precise on your measurements here. The recipe itself called for 2 cups of vegetables, 2 cups of seasonal vegetables. You saw how much spinach I put in there.
And Karen just brought Roma tomatoes to the party, which I think those are kind of like in between what you're using and the cherry tomatoes.
Yes,
They don't have so much juice
yes.
as a full tomato.
Romas are some of my favorites.
Same.
I
And actually, they're
love
so versatile.
Romas.
You can slice them for a sandwich or easily chop them.
The only reason I'm not using Romas is because these big vine ripe tomatoes, they were on sale
There
at
you go.
Publix. They smelled great, they looked great. I didn't see any Roma tomatoes. So this is what we're using. But yes, those Romas are absolutely my favorite. And if you want less tomato and more spinach, change the ratio. It doesn't have to be an even half and half. It can be whatever you like. That's the best part of this recipe. Okay. I could stop at 1 tomato. I could do a second tomato. You know, it's however, these tomatoes are huge. And that's our timer. So I'm going to stop that for a second. So what we do with the orzo when it's done, we have to drain it, because just like pasta, it doesn't absorb all that cooking water. So I've got a colander already in the sink, and I'm just going to pour that out and drain it. Okay. And it does, like pasta and rice, it does expand while you're cooking it. So 1 cup uncooked is more like 2 or 3 cups cooked. So just bear that in mind when you're making one of these recipes. Okay. And I really like the tricolor because there's a little bit of tomato and a little bit of spinach in the pasta. So I think that's fun. It adds some color to the salad. Okay. And I'm going to pop that in there. And then I'm going to finish.
Will that wilt the spinach very much?
A little bit, which is fine. It
Yeah.
won't cook it, but it'll kind of wilt it down a little bit. Which is why I didn't worry about throwing so much in.
Right. It's going to, that will shrink.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, and we've been talking a lot about eating our rainbow. So we've got some red and green in there, obviously already. It looks like you've got some lemon yellow coming our way.
We're going to throw in, and you've got a list. Do you have that list handy, Angie?
I have the list handy of what is in what.
So the reason we always say shop the rainbow is because all those different colors in your fruits and vegetables are bringing different nutrients to the table, different phytochemicals, antioxidants. So tomatoes are a fantastic source of lycopene, for example. What else you got there, Angie?
So yeah, and lycopene, I think tomatoes are like the sort of hallmark superstar for lycopene, but watermelon is also fantastic, and the pink grapefruit. And it's good for your heart and good for cancer prevention. I think that one thing that's a great caveat about the lycopene is that you do absorb it a little bit better with a heart healthy fat, which April is going to be doing, an olive oil based vinaigrette here pretty soon. Yeah, and then the spinach is obviously it's considered a yellow green versus green like you get in broccoli. That has lutein, which is also going to show up in corn. So, being from Nebraska, I do have to tell you that corn does have a nutrient. But that is a strong antioxidant, and along with like the retinols that we think of, that the lutein is great for your eyes.
There you go.
Yeah.
And spinach, it definitely it's a dark leafy green. So it's a fantastic source of your B vitamins, folate, iron. It's actually a good source of iron. So spinach, we absolutely, more opportunities.
And I always plug spinach because I feel like it's kind of had its day, but for a long time, I swear people thought they couldn't eat healthy if they didn't like kale. And I'd be like, yeah, if you don't like kale, you can eat spinach. It's got a lot of the same things.
Exactly. And I'll tell you, I'm a dietitian. I don't like kale. I think it's too bitter. I don't enjoy it. So I get all the same benefits from spinach.
From your spinach, yeah.
So I have a shallot. If you're unfamiliar with the shallot, it's in the onion family, right? And I'm just going to do little strips. And then we're going to cut it the opposite way. And this way I'll get a nice little dice. The easy way to make that happen. Okay. And all of that goes straight in. No onion left behind.
And I feel like we do have kind of our regulars. So people
Yes.
have probably heard us plug about, if you aren't familiar with a shallot, it's not just an onion, it's a much milder flavor.
Mhm.
I was sitting here thinking through what are some mild onions that you could substitute, but I would just say this shows up in April's recipes for a reason. Try the shallot.
Now, I do happen to have chives, like the stalked
Yes.
green onions. I have those in the fridge. That would go great in
That
this
works
recipe.
good.
You
Yeah.
could easily put that in here. I really like shallots.
Yeah. A
I'm
red
not,
onion would totally change the recipe.
I was
Uh,
just going to say,
yeah.
I am not a huge fan of raw red onions, unless like
Mhm.
if they're in a Greek salad, but they're very strong. The red onions have a much stronger, almost more bitter flavor. So I probably would not put that in here. Um, Zest of half of a lemon is plenty. We just want it to kind of brighten up the flavor, okay? And also just the juice of half of a lemon. So this is going to be our acidic balance, right? Like if you think of a vinaigrette dressing, it's got oil and it's got an acid. So normally think of like a balsamic dressing. It's got olive oil and it's got balsamic vinegar in it. So the lemon is our acid, right? So that is the whole point. And I'm going to try to use this fangled, right? I've got the old school, but yeah, it works.
Is that new for you? I don't think I've seen you use
Yes,
that before.
yes,
I'm literally adding it to my Amazon cart as we speak.
yes. Because it keeps the seeds out.
Yes. We
Mhm.
only have 13 minutes left, so I will not start about me and seeds, but I'm gonna get myself one of those.
Absolutely. And if you feel like your lemon didn't produce enough juice, mine was not super juicy. Or if you like me, added a lot of extra veggies, you go ahead and use the other half of the lemon, which is
Yes.
what I'm going to do. Um, just so that we got a nice little acidic bite. Okay. And then we are going to put in some feta cheese. I've got a quarter cup of crumbled feta cheese. And this is feta has a really strong flavor. So it's going to add a lot of flavor to the dish, and it's very salty. And so between the feta and the olives that we're about to put in, we don't have to use as much salt in the dish. Now the olives, I got Kalamata olives, and they were halved. They're in the jar halved, so they're already pitted for me. But again, just like with the spinach, I don't want big mouthfuls. I want it nice and evenly distributed through the salad. So I'm just going to give these a quick rough chop also, so that they're just slightly smaller pieces and
Yes.
get mixed into the salad a little bit better.
And whereas you kind of eyeballed the tomato and spinach, I noticed you measured the feta. You have taught me that cheese is a condiment, not the main
Yes,
course.
because it is a little bit higher in fat. It is a little bit higher in salt.
Yep.
So the olives and the feta, yes, they are condiments. They're just adding some flavor to the salad. Okay. Although olives are great heart healthy
Heart healthy fat,
options.
yeah.
Yes, I do love some olives. I bought an olive tree. There's an olive tree in my backyard now.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you have it in a pot right now, right?
It's a little baby olive tree, so I won't get olives for probably a couple of years, but they're like the thick, meaty black olive. I'm very excited.
Mhm.
So, okay, so that is the meat of our salad. We're just going to add a couple more things. We're going to add some pepper, just some fresh ground black pepper. The oregano is already in there. That's part of the flavoring. We are going to add a teaspoon of salt. It doesn't have to be more than that because you've got the salty feta and the salty olives. If you don't like olives, capers would be a really great option. You're just looking for something sour, salty, briny to add to make that flavor pop, right? And then a tablespoon of olive oil. I've got extra virgin olive oil. So we're gonna throw that in there. So this is really nice because we didn't have to make the vinaigrette ahead of time. It all just mixes together when you toss the salad. And so I'm just gonna go in with a fork and start lightly tossing it around. And you can see, Angie, the lettuce, it's not super wilted. It's just from the heat of that. And you can make this in advance. You can cook the orzo in advance and let it cool. So it doesn't all have to go together hot. It just comes together so quickly that why not, you know? So that's it in a nutshell. This is our salad.
So that portion was done in 20 minutes.
20 minutes. Yeah.
I mean, you had the pot on the burner before we started, but other than that, this all came together in 20 minutes. You can eat it now. It's probably slightly warm. Stick it in the fridge, eat off of that for a couple days.
Yeah. And there you go.
Beautiful.
Right? Look how colorful that is. And now there's a little bit of protein in this. The orzo, another thing that I like about the orzo is it actually has 7 grams of protein per serving. And you're getting a little bit of protein from the feta, not a lot. There's only a 1/4 cup of feta in the whole recipe. So this is a great side dish. This is a great plant-based, fresh side dish. You can cook some chicken breasts. You can throw some shrimp in it and mix it all up. You could keep it vegetarian and put chickpeas or black beans.
I think chickpeas would be my choice for sure. Yeah. Or I buy the pouches of salmon. That would be great to toss in there.
I have the little freezer pouches of single serve edamame, the soybeans. Yep. That you just pull out of the freezer, throw it in the microwave to steam it, and then toss that in for your protein source. So lots of options for that. Our farro is done. So I am also going to strain this. Okay.
And I think you said, but I think a couple people came on after. So just for those who didn't hear, April is making the farro to show you, like it's one of those ancient grains, which Karen Alexander featured a month or 2 ago in newsletters about like using those. So if you would want to make the feta or the farro ahead, but it would be fantastic as the grain in the salad.
Yes. So, right. Let's say that you did not want to use pasta, right? The farro is not only an equal source of protein to the orzo, but it also is a fantastic source of fiber because it's a whole grain. But it has a much longer cook time, right? 25 to 30 minutes compared to 10 minutes on the orzo. So if you're trying to get ahead and meal prep a little bit so that you don't have so much to do for your weeknight meals, you can cook this farro in advance, throw it on the stove, let it go for half an hour, and then you can freeze it. So the biggest key to freezing this farro is spread it out on a cookie sheet. If you freeze it as is, if you just put that big lump of farro in a Ziploc bag and throw it in the freezer, you are going to end up with a giant brick of farro. And it's going to take a lot longer to thaw out, right? So take the extra time. Once it's strained, we'll move this to the side. Pour it out on a cookie sheet. And I'm going to use my spatula because that is hot and steaming. And just spread it out on the cookie sheet so that you get kind of a full of the farro. Let it cool, let it dry, and then you're going to throw this in the freezer for a couple of hours until it's frozen. And then you can put it in your freezer safe Ziploc bag or container or whatever it is that you're using, and it won't all stick together. So that, and you can freeze it depending on, if you're feeding a family of 4 or if you're only eating for 1 or 2. You can freeze all of it in one bag, or you can freeze it in little individual single servings so that you can just pull one serving out of the freezer without having to cook 3 cups worth of farro. So you can pull one serving out and just make yourself a little salad for a single meal.
Yeah. And I'm linking in the chat. I found, and I bought all of the grains for it and then never cooked it. There's a ancient grain mix in the Instant Pot. So if you're on the Instant Pot train like I am, you can do the ancient grains in the Instant Pot too. You do want to Google it or find your little cookbook, because we've noticed even with rice that jasmine versus basmati will vary entirely on the cook time and the water ratio. So they can be done in the Instant Pot, but do your research.
Do your homework, right?
Yes.
You can also do farro, especially, and I'm sure you can do this with most of the grains, the whole grains, because they all have a fairly long cook time. You can put them in the slow cooker. So just the opposite. In the Instapot, it takes about 12 minutes. So you're cutting your cook time in half. In the slow cooker, it's 2.5 hours on low, or I think it's an hour or an hour and a half on high. So you're extending the cook time, but you get to just walk away from it.
Yes. Yes. And you are not worried about a device exploding on your kitchen counter.
Right, right. So all of those are great options.
Yeah.
So if you're not into pasta, if you'd rather have the grain, the whole grain, fantastic substitution. And I really like farro. I actually like it more than rice. It's a little bit chewier. It has a nutty flavor. So you could even, before cooking the farro, you could put it on the pan and toast it in the oven to bring out the nutty flavor, and then put it in the pot and boil it, and then do all of this. It just has a really nice flavor and texture that I like a lot. And I'm checking the time before we leave, before I lose everybody. We have to announce the winner of the first ever National Nutrition Month recipe contest from March. And I just want to thank everybody who participated, who sent me recipes. It was really fun for us. And so hopefully we do it again next year. But the winner, I don't have a drum roll, is...
And she's not on the call as far as I can tell, unless she's the dial-in.
Okay. The winner is Diane Benfield. She is actually one of Florida Cancer Specialists' behavioral health therapists. And she submitted, the winning recipe is a fresh mango black bean salsa. Guys, I can't tell you how beautiful the picture is. There's so much color. It looks so fresh and vibrant. You'll see it if you work for FCS. You'll see an announcement in our internal emails this week. If you don't work for FCS, it'll be on social media this week. We're going to post the recipe on Facebook, give Diane her props for winning, and then I will be cooking the recipe. I'll be making it in June for our next teaching kitchen in June. I will probably be making it with less of the hot sauce and chili peppers than what Diane makes it with.
Diane likes it spicy.
Yes, hey, if you like it spicy, it is to taste. That's the beauty. That's what I like about those recipes. Yes. So it'll be great on its own. It'll be great as a topping for chicken or fish. I'm really excited to do that in June.